Week 6 is in the books. Drake Maye made his debut. The Ravens still look like the best team in football, and the NFC East is an absolute mess. We'll be getting into all those topics and more, but first, we are starting off with the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. Sort of an NFC East topic, but the real topic of conversation is the Lions, because they have lost Aidan Hutchinson. I know they absolutely shellacked Dallas. That should be something celebrated. This was their Super Bowl. They got screwed last year against Dallas and have got revenge for that. But you just can't get away from the fact their best player is gone. The identity of their defense is gone. And I'm not going to say this ends their season. It makes it a whole lot harder. They had a mediocre pass defense, which was getting carried by generating pressures and sacks, many of which came from Hutch. That's going to fall off a cliff, be one of the worst passing defenses in football. Their run defense, among the best in the league. That's going to be much worse. Might fall to around the 8th, 9th, 10th best. And I am now skeptical of this team's ability to make a run. It does them a lot of favors. They're not going to play a super talented passer in the NFC because there isn't one unless you think Sam Darnold's that guy for some reason. But it is a bad loss for Detroit. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl now. Maybe they make it out of the conference, but this really hurts their ceiling, crushes them around the locker room, and they may be able to get by for a few weeks defensively, but it's going to add up over time, the absence of Hutch.
Yeah, the fashion they beat the Cowboys was not surprising. They were always going to be a horrible matchup for an even healthy Cowboys defense. The Cowboys have a bad run defense. The Lions run the ball at an extremely high level with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. They pass the ball well. The Cowboys secondary, even when it was healthy, was not playing extremely well. So this was not a good matchup for that defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, we've said it every single week. We've talked about the Cowboys. They just don't have enough talent. Their offensive tackles are not as good as they've been in years past. They don't have a second receiving option. Some people are going to like Jalen Tolbert, but he's just not all that great at the end of the day. They have no running back, and there's no one to throw to. They are not operating at a high level. And to speak to the Aidan Hutchinson injury, he is the best player on their team, the second most important player on their team. I would just value Jared Goff slightly more because he is the quarterback, and everything runs to the quarterback when it comes to putting points on the board, but it is the equivalent to other teams like the Steelers losing TJ Watt, the equivalent to the Browns losing Myles Garrett, teams where the defense surrounds one player. It is a significant injury, and everything you said already, I would just be reiterating when it comes to how devastating it is for their defense, stopping high-level passing attacks, and it's more important to talk about a potential solution. And I've seen the idea kind of...
I know where you're going with this. I'm going to kind of jump in here and talk about a few things, then we can transition into the Crosby stuff. First off, before we get away from it, I think it would be a lot easier to replace Jared Goff than it would be to replace Aidan Hutchinson, because you have to trade multiple first-round picks to get a guy on Hutchinson's level. Goff, you want to have some faith in Hendon Hooker, but if push comes to shove, you can find a backup quarterback. You can find a Joe Flacco on some team. And anyone in this Lions offense with the strength of their O-line, with the strength of their receivers, with Sam Laporta, with Gibbs, Montgomery, with Ben Johnson, they're going to succeed. They're not going to be a bad offense at any point. They could have you or me out there and would find a way to score about 20 points, handing the ball off 50 times.
I disagree because at the end of the day, Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback. If you don't think of him that highly, he's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL, and they just don't grow on trees. If it was that easy, every team would do it, and you wouldn't see teams handing out these massive contracts, and we'd see more roster construction where all the money is spent on receivers and running backs and offensive line, and you hand out a small contract to the quarterback. I would just disagree with that premise, but we don't need to get into semantics on that. There's two players I've seen floated out there to replace Aidan Hutchinson. The idea has been floated out that the Cowboys should enter rebuild mode, and maybe they trade Micah Parsons.
I have not seen that. That is insanity. I have seen that
the idea floated out there.
The Crosby makes sense. Micah is insane. That is not happening.
I don't think that would ever happen, especially because of Jerry Jones and the rivalry that has kind of developed between those teams. And Jerry just the idea of them trading Micah in general to anybody.
You think him getting shellacked on his birthday in front of the entire world is going to open up his mind? Well, maybe I need to do these lines a favor since we lost so much. Let's send Micah on over.
Well, it's also he likes his homegrown talent, and he's not going to trade away a player.
Doesn't seem to pay him like he likes him.
Well, he paid Dak, he paid CeeDee Lamb. He's going to pay Micah eventually.
Eventually, when it's about 5 times more valuable for the player than it is for the market. But I digress.
He takes care of his guys.
He takes care of his guys, maybe a little bit too much. But
Max Crosby, that one has been floated out there, and it's much more realistic for both teams' timelines. He would fit the Lions culture perfectly. He played college ball in Michigan. The Raiders, they don't have the quarterback situation figured out. Christian Wilkins, who's supposed to pair nicely with Max Crosby, is done for the season. They're looking to trade Devontae Adams. They're looking to get a quarterback in next year's draft, and they're going to need extra draft capital to get that done if they don't fall in the top 3 picks and aren't able to get the guy they want, whether that's Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, if they have him graded highly once that process is completed. So if you the Lions call you up and they're offering 2 first-round picks that are virtually second-round picks, they give you ammunition to trade up for the quarterback you want in next year's draft. If you need that, if you don't need to trade up, it gives you ammunition to build around your next quarterback. So I think it is a trade that needs to happen for both teams.
Yeah, you're wrong. I don't think that those draft picks are more valuable in Detroit hands than they are in anybody else's. They are going to get 2 really good players from those first-round picks. If their recent success in the draft is anything to go off of, I would be hesitant to trade draft capital if I was Detroit. But second, they've got Isaac Ukwa and James Houston, who are 2 really, I'd say, decent developmental players who are now going to be thrust into a much larger role. We're going to be able to find out if those guys for real could hang in the NFL, can add to the rotation once Hutch is back. But the window is not just this year for Detroit. They've got their guys under contract. They've got time. They don't need to mortgage the entire future, narrow their season down or their window down to 1 year by trading for Max Crosby and going for it right now. They've got time. I don't think going all in this year is the strategy Detroit wants to go with, particularly after they've paid Sewell, Amon-Ra, and Goff. And after they've extended Montgomery.
Trading for Crosby doesn't slam your window shut to just 1 season because they've paid all the guys you already mentioned. They don't have a lot of big contracts on the horizon. It won't be a couple seasons until they have to pay a Jahmyr Gibbs. Who knows if they wind up extending Jameson Williams or how much money he will even demand. And with what Hutchinson injury looked like, who knows when he'll be back next season and how good he'll be back after that takes place. So if you're able to get a 27-year-old edge rusher that's capable of competing for a Defensive Player of the Year award, that is able to elevate your team this season in an NFC where the NFC East is a disaster, the NFC West, maybe the 49ers finally turn around, and the NFC South, the Buccaneers and Falcons, I think, leave a lot to be desired, and your division is the only one that's extremely competitive. I feel like it's a trade that really puts them over the top and makes them the clear best team in the NFC.
Again, this is not a good roster construction mindset. You are passing up 2 cheap players who presumably will both be good for a player in Max Crosby, who, phenomenal talent, certainly, but he's still a big contract. You may have your stars locked up. You're going to lose depth. You're going to lose quality pieces on the offense, on the defense. Your O-line's going to get worse. It's not worth it to add another big contract for the sake of competing for 1 year. If you have any faith in this organization, you don't want them to panic and trade for Crosby. Still might do it. He's a good Dan Campbell guy, good cultural fit seemingly, although pushing coach is no bueno. But we're just going to go back and forth. We keep talking about this. Let's go and talk about a team with a more promising future, a team with exciting things going on, and of course, a team with the Offensive Rookie of the Year. The Commanders played a close one against the Ravens. Very competitive game. Lost late. We're missing Brian Robinson. I think that was what lost them the game. He is a touchdown swing, in my opinion. Their defense forced some turnovers, gave Jaden Daniels the ball more than we thought they would. Shout out to Mikey Sanders still, but we're not capable of stopping King Henry or Lamar Jackson on the ground. If you're a Commanders fan, you look at this game and say, okay, we hung with one of the 2 or 3 best teams in football. We know what we are bad at. We have an area to address moving forward. While this may not be our year per se, the future is incredibly bright, particularly with how that offense looks. Sensational stuff, best offense performance anybody has had against the Ravens defense all year, in my opinion, and Jaden Daniels outperformed Lamar Jackson in a vacuum. Great stuff from Washington. The Ravens, they won the game. They're rolling forward. They've got momentum. That weak start really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And they're probably the best team in the AFC.
I don't know if I'd say outperformed him in a vacuum. Lamar threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had 1 pick. And the Ravens only punted 1 time. So the Ravens offense was very good. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with that take. But my overall reaction to the NFC this past weekend and through 6 weeks is that it is the NFC North, the Commanders, and then everyone else. I mentioned already, I think the 2 top teams in the NFC South are very flawed. The 49ers, they need to turn things around in a major way over the course of the rest of the season in the red zone. And the NFC East, besides the Commanders, is a disaster. And the thing that is super encouraging, if you are a Commanders fan, is that Jaden Daniels, against one of the best defenses he has faced this year, did not turn the ball over. He was still efficient, ran the ball well, and moved the offense up and down the field. And then from the defensive perspective, you might not have all of the talent yet, but you got enough stops to win the game, especially, like you mentioned, if Brian Robinson is playing that game. They forced 1 punt, 3 field goals, and they got an interception. That is enough to beat any team in the NFL with how good this Commanders offense is playing. That is the 3rd best scoring offense in the NFL. So the Commanders have a chance to make some real noise in the playoffs, maybe win a wild card game. I don't think it is their year quite yet, as you mentioned, because I don't think they have enough talent on the defensive side of the ball, but extremely bright future for the Commanders.
I mean, that wild card game could be a rough spot because just looking ahead, their matchup is going to be, if it stands right now, they win their division. Vikings get the first round bye. Whoever wins the NFC North gets the first round bye. Their wild card is going to be against a pretty real team, in my opinion. Maybe the Seahawks sneak in there, and that's the matchup. I don't know. I think the NFC East winner, if it is the Commanders, will probably have 12 wins or so. NFC West winner, assuming the 49ers get back on track, around that. And the NFC South, the Falcons are winning 12-13 games, even if they're not as good as Washington. So Commanders could roll into the playoffs as the 3 or the 4 seed, get a tough first-round match, and lose, particularly if it's to the Lions or the Vikings. But I don't know. I think playoff win is a bit ahead of schedule. We're not going to split many ears and saying Washington has the best rookie quarterback right now, one of the best offenses in the league, and has a bright future. Looking at the Ravens, I would like them to win a football game without Derrick Henry touching the ball 20 times. Next week against Carolina, great opportunity to do that. I would love to see him get less than 15 carries, have a deeper backfield, a good rotation, maybe get the backup quarterback Joe Johnson in there by the second half. But phenomenal team, great organization. They're winning the North. They might win the AFC.
If it was not for what the Chiefs have accomplished in the history of what they've done over the past few seasons, the Ravens would be my lock for the best team in the AFC with how they have progressed each season. Their passing attack has looked better than any Ravens passing attack we have seen in recent memory. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman's having the best year of his career. All the plethora of tight ends they have working off of that. Justice Hill out of the backfield. Lamar Jackson is on pace for over 4,000 passing yards for the first time in his career and is still on pace for over 1,100 rushing yards. The pairing of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry has worked perfectly. And you mentioned Derrick Henry's workload a little bit. I'm pretty sure Justice Hill, when it comes to snaps, is relatively even with Derrick Henry. So he does get breaks during the game where he's not on the field every single play, having to run a route or carry out a play action. So I do think that is something the Ravens have been handling pretty well to give him some breaks here and there. And I think over the course of the rest of the season, the only reason they're not the best team in the NFL by everyone's power rankings is the Chiefs I already mentioned, and what we've seen from the Vikings so far, the Vikings high is better than the Ravens high that we've seen so far.
We've also seen that lovely, rich playoff history the Ravens have been building of choking spectacularly in the playoffs. That probably knocks him down a few pegs in some people's minds. But you say, oh, he's getting even snaps with Hill. The problem is he's still getting way more carries and way more contact. I know running routes does put some strain on the body. Blocking, chip blocking, whatever, hurts you a little bit. But the thing which ruins running backs is those carries. He's Derrick Henry. He's a freak of nature. He's probably going to be fine for a majority of the season. But in games you are going to comfortably win, I would like to see him touch the ball less, specifically next week against Carolina. Now that I've said this, the Panthers are going to go get in a 35-38 shootout with the Ravens. I'm speaking that into existence. The Red Rifle will fire again in the AFC North.
When the Ravens play down, they have a tendency to play down to their competition, which we saw when they lost to the Raiders. So.
I could spin that brilliantly into the Falcons discussion I want to have, but we'll save that for later in the video. Drake Maye made his debut. The box score, all right. The final score, not great. If you watch the game, you know there were highs and you know there were some low lows. That interception, bad. The pocket awareness, you'd like it to be better, but Will Anderson is a freak of nature. And the Patriots tackle situation, as I've mentioned the past 2 weeks, is dreadful. Those touchdowns, pretty good. 2 of them, a lot of work done after the catch. But that one throw down that right sideline was just beautiful. That is what you drafted Drake Maye for. Second half, moved better in the pocket, created stuff with his legs, avoided some bad unnecessary hits. And all in all, I think this was the best debut from a rookie quarterback we have seen this season. Maybe you argue Jaden Daniels against the Buccaneers week 1 was better. But I don't know. Drake Maye threw for 3 touchdowns. So there's just something about that. There's this chutzpah he's got.
I'd probably take Jaden Daniels' debut, but it was certainly better than what we saw from Caleb Williams early in the season. And the struggles he had early in the first half, I think, were largely to be expected. He clearly looked uncomfortable, getting used to the speed of the NFL, and he was playing against a Texans defense that allowed the lowest quarterback completion percentage in the NFL through the first 5 weeks. So the fact that in the second half, when the game was already out of reach, that he was able to settle down, looked much more comfortable in the pocket compared to what he looked like in the first half, threw the ball down the field, went through progressions, was pretty accurate, threw 3 touchdowns. I think that is extremely exciting and encouraging for the Patriots fan base, where you just need to start to build around him. You need to provide him with a better offensive line, because what he's playing behind right now is just flat out bad. Give him some receiving weapons, continue to build that defense, and then you actually have a future in New England again after the 2 decades of dominance you had with Tom Brady.
Good for them. Good for them. I know we are all excited here, Boston fans, talk about the next great one they got. I will give Maye a slightly longer leash than I'd give someone like Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, who is essentially a rookie, because he is in a talentless system. You just highlighted it. He was playing without Ramondre Stevenson this week. Antonio Gibson was the team's #1 running back. Not bueno in the year of our Lord 2024. You don't like seeing that if you are a Maye believer. Still, good debut. Gets to play the Jaguars in London next week, which London games are always screwy, and the Jaguars have been there for a week, and Peterson is coaching for his job. So maybe he gets shellacked by the Joshua Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. Hard to say.
And for the box score watchers that have only looked at the box score from this game, because it wasn't exactly an exciting game to watch, you probably were watching better games at the time, his second interception was just extremely unlucky, and his first one was bad.
So I mean, the second one should have been thrown into the ground. You don't try and wing it around a defensive end on the outside.
If it was just hit and then caught over someone.
That ball should have been thrown in. That is being a rookie and not giving up on a play. I don't give these guys passes for stupid decisions, but I know why they're happening. They're rookies. It was an inexperienced throw. He played well. We don't need to nitpick him.
And as he plays worse teams, you'll see him get more comfortable and more opportunities will be afforded to him. Much like Caleb Williams, who started the year against some tougher defenses, was not ready for the speed of the NFL at all. And as he's gotten more comfortable, he's played some weaker opponents where he's also been able to look better.
I hate doing it every week, but dear God, the Rams, Colts, Panthers, and Jaguars have 4 of the bottom 5 passing defenses in football, and it is upsetting me to a certain degree. His trip through Candyland just keeps going. He plays the Commanders next week, and they may have picked off Lamar Jackson. They still cannot defend the pass. Like, he is going to have another good week the next time he plays. He can't keep getting away with this, man.
Well, there's also, in all these matchups where he's played worse defenses, he's made some throws that were there and available to him against better defenses in the beginning of the year, where I think if he played those better teams now, we'd see a much different level of processing, and he'd complete more of those wide open passes he had the first few weeks.
Then again, had a whole lot more pressure against the Titans and the Texans than he did against either of these 4 teams, so maybe that screws the processing. Speaking purely speculatively, we're not going to talk about many rookie quarterbacks going forward until we see them against real tough teams. I feel like we'd be reiterating our same points. Jaden Daniels is great. May get a little bit more coverage. I think Bo Nix is a bum. Caleb Williams has his flashes, still has some issues. I would love to see these guys truly tested. Some of them have been, some of them haven't. Just have to wait and see.
The exciting Sunday night matchup, high-scoring affair, deep bombs all over the place. It was a defensive. Please don't patronize me by reading a book.
I'm not patronizing you. I'm entertaining myself.
About baking.
Exactly. Cherry cheesecake bars. This stuff's good. I got to make some of these.
You know your team's not that great when you get excited about watching your defensive line shut down one of the best scoring offenses in the NFL. Dexter Lawrence still on pace to have 17 sacks. Brian Burns ruined the game. Azeez Ojulari, healthy for feels like the first time in his career. Had a great rookie season, was very good last night in place of Kayvon Thibodeau. If you're a Bengals fan, it's not encouraging that you weren't able to move the ball against this Giants defense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I'll just speak from a Giants fan perspective. It was fun watching Tyrone Tracy. He did some cool things. He caught the ball out of the backfield well, but Daniel Jones just doesn't throw the ball down the field at a high level. Every pass he completed, he completed a pass, was under 10 yards. He misses throws deep. And when it comes to the result of the game, the Giants, they're going to be competitive against a lot of teams this season because of their defense. I think they would have won last night if they had Malik Neighbors. But you can only go so far with Daniel Jones not being able to throw it more than 10 yards down the field.
Found a pretty good banana cream pie recipe in there. I'm going to have to bake that. I'll tell you how it goes. Daniel Jones is the Giants' future, and I keep saying this. There is not a surefire solution available to them in next year's draft unless they trade up, which with how bad the Giants have been at making picks recently, maybe that's a move to mortgage some future capital. But you keep building your team, you build your O-line, you make Jones as comfortable as possible. I do tend to agree that if they had Thibodeau, Singletary, I gotta stop calling him that, he actually gets touched now. Devin Singletary and Malik Neighbors, they at very least would have made it a one-score game, made it more competitive. Why Malik Neighbors is at a Travis Scott concert with a concussion and then is ruled out, that's a bit befuddling to me. You might have to check with the medical staff on that. The Odell gene manifest, if you would. Hopefully he stays away from Diddy parties. I think the Giants are going to be okay. They're not going to be good. They're not going to be mediocre. They're going to be okay. I will move them up to like 5-6 wins thanks to the strength of their defense. Daniel Jones gets another year. Hopefully Dable gets another year. Happy times all around.
Stop saying it might have been one-score game. It was tied or a one-score game the entire game.
Until it wasn't.
The only difference in this game is Joe Burrow, which he never does, breaking off a 50-yard touchdown run. Daniel Jones pulling a Daniel Jones, throwing a Daniel Jones interception in the red zone, and the Giants kicker missed 2 kicks.
Yeah.
If Neighbors is on the field, their offense is much more efficient, and they would have put themselves in more scoring opportunities, or those field goals would have been closer field goals. And I don't think they missed.
Or Daniel Jones will have tried to throw it downfield and will have resulted in an interception because he underthrew Neighbors. Oh yeah, there's always that side of things too.
There is that side of things.
Shout out to Greg Joseph, the MetLife turf, not great. Interfered with his kicking motion. Phenomenal in Minnesota, except for all the extra points he missed. Yeah, it could have been a one-score game, but the Giants, what are you going to do? I don't really care about Bengals football. They're a bad team. New York's a bad team. We can move on. They're the worst team in the NFC East, which actually isn't saying something.
They'll beat the Cowboys. They're beating the Eagles next week.
Okay, you stopped yourself. You were going to say they're beating the Cowboys.
And they're going to beat the Cowboys.
You said they were going to beat the Cowboys.
You know what? They'll beat the Commanders in their second matchup, too, while we're at it. Winning the division.
Winning the division with 6 wins.
Anyway, you want to?
Oh, I get to do that.
Eagles.
A team which may win the division, which has a small chance, is the Philadelphia Eagles. And my co-host doesn't like Nick Sirianni. You are going to hear that thoroughly expressed. I would like to point out I think their defense has played relatively well with the exception of the Buccaneers game. Haven't allowed a ton of points. Didn't allow a touchdown against the Browns, which, I mean, does that really count for anything? It's Deshaun Watson throwing the ball at this point. Their offensive line, still good. Their running game, Saquon didn't get going, but the Browns have not allowed a running back to rush for more than 75 yards this year, so I think that's more so a defensive matchup thing than them being an inept thing. And their passing game's dreadful. Was dreadful without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Was dreadful with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm willing to give them one more week before I start spazzing out on Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts, and Sirianni. I'd like to let them play themselves back into the lineup, get back in 100% football shape, cook the Giants a little bit. But all in all, it's a somewhat questionable team, a questionable organization. You think they can be good. You think they can win games. But there's just something about them which makes you not want to put your faith in.
I don't really care about all of the stories that are about, Nick Sirianni shaved his head. He's yelling at the fan base. He's corny. You know what you're getting into when Nick Sirianni is your coach. That does not really matter to me. What is concerning about Nick Sirianni and this Eagles offense, or their offense in general, with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the field, they are so reliant on the 1 to 3 big plays where A.J. Brown goes down the field, mosses someone, Devonta Smith blows by his corner, scores a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had 264 yards passing, which looks nice in the box score, but 85 of those 264 yards were 2 completions from A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. So I don't think this Eagles team is going to be able to win games when they force when the other team forces Jalen Hurts to pick apart the defense. The offense does not feel like a cohesive unit like it did at the beginning of last season and when they were making their Super Bowl push. And I think that falls on Nick Sirianni and obviously the players too, but I don't see a world where Nick Sirianni is this team's head coach after the season. And it doesn't have anything to do with the off-the-field antics. It's what the offense he's putting on the field, because he's supposed to be an offensive guy.
Well, he's not calling the offensive plays. He also glassed over backup tight end Grant Calcaterra, I hope I'm saying that right, doing some nice, nifty, shifty white boy football on the sideline. He also had about a 30-40 yard gain to pad those Jalen Hurts stats, which mostly came after the catch and due to his own skill. So I get what you're saying, the passing attack, not good. I would like to wait until maybe week 10 before I say, okay, Sirianni's not going to work. Because I think if they can rally, get things together, they'll be fine. This is a team which thrives on momentum. They won their first 10 games or something last year, then fell apart because the momentum shifted on. If they can just get that back by the final month of the season, roll into the playoffs relatively healthy, firing on all cylinders, then I think you have something. We also got to ask ourselves, is Jalen Hurts that guy? Did that one season of elite MVP production, largely bolstered by the tush push, skew our perception of him? He has not played like a top 15 quarterback this year, and I don't know who you want to blame for that. Some of it certainly falls on him, but what is the Eagles' future like with Jalen Hurts, with the contract he's on? Is that sustainable? Is he a guy who can take them to the next level?
Well, I think with Hurts, he's not going anywhere. It's hard to get a starting caliber quarterback that you think can be the guy in the NFL, and Nick Sirianni's more likely to get fired and replaced with someone else when it comes to that discussion specifically. But a reason why I don't believe in this Eagles team or them to get the momentum back is because they're so reliant on that big play, whereas a team like the 49ers, where all our eyebrows are raised a little bit with some of the games they have lost, they still have one of the most productive offenses in the NFL. They're just not getting the ball in the end zone.
They're also the walking dead, which slightly bolsters their opinion come playoff time. Presumably, Christian McCaffrey will be on the field at some point again this season. That's the thing which is kind of keeping the 49ers' hopes alive, in my opinion. They let 2 elite runners of the football back when CMC touches down.
But that's why I would believe in them more so than I believe in the Eagles to get things back on track. And you mentioned their talent. If the Eagles turn things around at the end of the season and then make a playoff push, I could see that happening just because they have the receivers, they have the running back, they have some cool names on defense. I just don't see it happening, but it's not like that would shock me.
I mean, the problem is, you mentioned earlier, the NFC's wide open. The Lions just lost their best player. The Vikings, they're 5-0, but they're kind of unproven and could certainly fall off a little bit down the stretch once teams start analyzing that Sam Darnold film, picking apart his mistakes a little bit more, picking up on Flores' blitzes. NFC West, if the 49ers don't get healthy, they're going to be in a dogfight to even win that division with 9-10 wins, fighting with the Seahawks, maybe even the Cardinals late for it. And the South, look, we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins and the Falcons next. I'm unmoved. They could win 13 games and I'd be unmoved. I know who Kirk Cousins is. Smoothly transitioning, someone asked us to talk about it. The Falcons beat the Panthers this week, and if you watch this game, you know how it went. You know it was kind of a lackadaisical performance, 5-point game at the half, 1-score game going into the fourth quarter. The secondary carried the Falcons through some hostile waters. Their running game looked really good. Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson both went for north of 100 yards, and Kirk Cousins just played kind of mediocre 4 p.m. sub-prime time football. And to the Falcons fans out there in the audience, welcome to the Kirk Cousins experience. We talked about the Ravens playing down to their competition. Kirk Cousins plays down to his competition. There were plenty of games in Minnesota where he just rolled up and laid an egg. Did not get Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison Thielen involved in the offense early in the game against a subpar opponent and let it be way more competitive than it should have been. The Panthers are one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in football. You lump them in with the Jaguars and the Browns with how bad they are, and this was still a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. It hurts my perception of the Falcons a little bit. It makes me think they're going to lose games they should win, might not have a firm control over the South, and their run defense still terrible. Chuba Hubbard playing very well, had 90 yards in each of the last 4 weeks, 2 of those over 100. Maybe you want to say he's an elite running back after all. You definitely don't. And say that was why they got gouged on the ground, but just kind of an uninspiring performance from Atlanta. Hopefully they can bounce back against a better team.
I don't really agree on the offensive side of the ball. I think their offense has proven over the course of 6 weeks that they can be very good. They can score a lot of points. They can run the ball very well. I don't think their offense is really in question. And overall, it looks like a similar Kirk Cousins Vikings team. They have a lot of talented pieces on offense. He's distributing the ball at a high level. They actually have a very good run game, which Kirk Cousins didn't necessarily always have on the Vikings, and they have a middling defense. Their run defense has been atrocious. They got bullied a couple weeks ago by the Buccaneers on the ground. The Saints were successful on the ground. The Eagles were very successful on the ground against them. And when they play a team like the Commanders later in the season that can really run the ball, or a team like the Chargers, if they're more healthy when they play the Falcons, that could give them a lot of issues. And then come playoff time, if they play a Lions that can run the ball very well, or if they play a team that can run the ball well, I don't feel good about their defense is my main point. And I don't think they have a defense that is good enough to carry them past some of the better teams in the NFC.
And they got secondary, which is good enough to carry them past any high-powered passing attack, but the NFC is super run-heavy this year, which I guess it's super run-heavy most years these days, but it doesn't do them any favors. I think you kind of missed the point of what I'm saying. I'm not saying their offense is in question. I'm saying their offense does not rise to the occasion. Their offense leaves them open to losing games they should win. Kirk Cousins threw for 225 yards against a woeful Panthers secondary, which Caleb Williams held court over last week. It's not a good performance by him. Again, they're going to be in games. They beat the Eagles. They play competitive against the Chiefs. They're a good football team, but you're also going to be in games later in the year where you're in a one-score dogfight with the Raiders. You're barely squeaking by the Broncos. Maybe the Broncos defense steps up and just shuts down Kirk Cousins and you score 5 points and lose that game. This is what the Kirk Cousins Falcons experience is going to be like.
Well,
they conceivably could win every game they're in. They conceivably could lose every game they're in.
My point is that I think the only reason they were in a game with the Panthers is because of how good Chuba Hubbard was. You mentioned it, running behind the interior of that offensive line. And Andy Dalton made some plays. I mean, he's still a veteran quarterback in the NFL that can dissect defenses. I don't think my main overall opinion from this game is the Falcons defense is just not good enough. They escaped versus the Buccaneers, but look what the defense did that week. So, they gave up a ton of points, and they barely got to overtime.
I mean, giving up 30 points when Baker and company are clicking is kind of comes with the territory. Their next few games, Seahawks, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Saints, Broncos. What do you think? 3-2 in those?
They could win all of them.
They could win all of them. Again, they could lose all of them because, as you said, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet run over them. Buccaneers beat them by one score last time. Now they're going to Tampa Bay to play them. Cowboys probably win that game. Saints probably win that game. And Broncos could just shut them down at Mile High Stadium. The Falcons team is not a contender this year. And it's partially because of their run defense. It's also partially because Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins.
Overarching, we agree on the team.
So we basically just trashed the Falcons despite the fact we think they're going to win 12 games and made that one dude who confident and asked us to talk about and feel kind of bad. They're a good team in a vacuum. They're not going to win the NFC unless everyone else gets hurt, unless that Hutchinson injury happens to every single star player in the NFC North, and to Brock Purdy, and to Jaden Daniels, and maybe to Saquon Barkley. Maybe that happens, but fly Falcons fly. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know how to end this video now. I'm going to go back to reading about my banana custard pie, if you'll excuse me.
That has been our Week 6 reactions. Let us know your biggest takeaways down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, help us get closer to 15, 20,000 subscribers. Use code Thicc on Underdog. It gives you extra bonus cash. It helps support our channel, and we will see you in the next one.